The sun hadn't even fully climbed above the rooftops yet when Jamal stepped onto the bus, his shoes scuffed, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and that quiet, steady look in his eyes. He didn't talk much on the ride to school. Didn't need to. He'd learned early that silence could be a shield. But behind that silence, his mind was always moving, always imagining sounds and melodies that the world around him couldn't hear. Most days, school felt like walking into a world that didn't know what to do with a boy like him. The halls were filled with loud voices, new sneakers, expensive backpacks, and names dropped like status symbols. Jamal was used to being invisible here. A shadow in hand-me-downs. A boy from a neighborhood the others didn't dare visit, unless it was to lock their car doors while passing through. But still, he walked in every morning with quiet dignity. Not because anyone gave it to him, but because his mother and grandmother had taught him to carry it, no matter what. His mama always said, "You are not where you come from, baby. You're where you're going." And his grandma, back when she was still alive, used to hum sweet jazz tunes while doing dishes, tapping rhythms on the sink like the kitchen was a stage and she was Ella Fitzgerald's ghost. Those songs stayed in Jamal's chest like a heartbeat. That music, soft and soulful, was the only thing that ever made the world feel still. That Friday morning, word spread quickly at Ridgeview Middle School. Carter Bexley's birthday party was happening that evening. The golden boy of the school, Carter had the kind of life that belonged in magazines. His father ran a financial firm. His mother chaired the local arts council. Their house sat at the top of Ridgeview Hill like a castle, surrounded by high hedges and guarded gates. And Carter? He played piano like he'd been born on the keys. Always first chair, always the star of every recital. Most students dreamed of getting invited to his party. It wasn't just a birthday, it was an event. But Jamal never expected his name to be on the guest list. So when his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Green, handed him a glossy invitation with a polite smile and said, "You're going, right? It's important we support each other," Jamal just blinked at it. The paper felt strange in his hands. Like it didn't belong. When he got home that day, he showed it to his mom. She looked at it for a long time, then at Jamal. "You sure you want to go?" she asked softly, already sensing what he hadn't said. Jamal just nodded. "Yeah. I think I should." So she did what any mother would. She ironed his only button-up shirt. She polished his shoes with a rag and some cooking oil. She gave him $1 for the bus, and before he left, she kissed his forehead and whispered, "Remember who you are." When Jamal arrived at the Bexleys' mansion, it was like stepping into a different universe. The front doors were taller than anything he'd ever seen. Inside, everything glowed. Polished floors, crystal chandeliers, a staircase that curved like something out of a dream. Waiters carried trays of sparkling cider and bite-sized food he couldn't even name. Other kids were already there, laughing, posing for pictures, giving each other compliments they didn't really mean. Jamal kept to the edge of the room, nodding when spoken to, smiling politely, pretending not to notice the occasional stares or raised eyebrows. He'd learned to stay small in spaces like this. To exist without taking up space. But then he saw it. The piano. It stood in a room just off the main hall, behind a pair of open French doors. Glossy black, upright, and absolutely stunning. A baby grand, curved like a wave, with golden petals that gleamed like coins. He didn't even mean to move, but somehow his feet took him there. Like gravity. Like fate. No one else was in the room at the time. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that begged to be filled. He stepped closer, his eyes wide, heart pounding. His fingers hovered above the keys, just an inch away. He didn't plan to press one. Just to feel it. Just to imagine. But in that one breathless moment, he did. One single key. The sound rang out, soft and pure. Like the beginning of something. And then came the voice. "Well, well, well. What do we have here? Jamal turned around, startled. Carter stood behind him, surrounded by 3 other boys, Preston, Jaden, and Eli, all dressed like mini versions of their fathers, smirking like they'd caught a thief. "Didn't know they let you people near pianos," Preston said with a laugh, and Jaden elbowed him like he was the funniest guy on earth. Jamal's hand dropped to his side. He didn't say anything. Didn't look away either. Carter stepped forward, that practiced, charming smile playing on his face. "Hey, Jamal. You play?" "No," Jamal replied quietly. "Then why'd you touch it?" Carter asked, tilting his head. "I just wanted to see what it felt like," Jamal said. "It's beautiful." "Yeah," Carter said. "It is. It's also probably worth more than your house." The boys laughed again. It wasn't just cruel, it was confident. The kind of cruelty that comes from knowing you'll never be held accountable. The kind that's been passed down. "Play something," Carter said suddenly. Jamal blinked. "What?" "You touched it. Might as well give us a show." "I don't." "Come on," Carter interrupted. "You touched my piano. Play." Jamal hesitated. He could feel the heat creeping up his neck. His legs were telling him to walk away. His pride told him to stay. Then Preston chimed in. "Let's see if he can even find middle C." That did it. Jamal sat down. He placed his fingers gently on the keys. Not like a pianist. Like someone touching something sacred. He closed his eyes. And he let the memory guide him. Back to the nights in his tiny room, where the only music came from the old radio that barely worked. Back to the times his grandma hummed Billie Holiday while folding laundry, or when his mother tapped rhythms on the steering wheel during long bus rides home. Back to the nights he imagined what music might feel like, not notes on a page, but emotions, grief, hope, joy, ache, turning into sound. And then he began. The room changed. One note, then 2, then a series, tentative but tender. It wasn't a song anyone recognized, because it wasn't a song written by anyone else. It was a sound born of longing. Of remembering. Of dreaming. The melody danced softly, rising and falling like breath. There were no mistakes, just emotions poured out through the piano like they'd been waiting to escape for years. The boys behind him grew quiet. Jamal's body swayed slightly as he played, his eyes still closed. He didn't see Carter's jaw slacken or Preston's phone fall forgotten to his side. He didn't hear Eli whisper, "Whoa." He didn't need to. The music said everything. When he finally finished, the last note lingered in the air like a held breath. Jamal opened his eyes slowly. Silence. Then a single, stunned voice, soft, reverent, from the doorway. "That was the most beautiful thing I've heard in years." It was Mrs. Lansing, the school's music teacher. She had arrived to pick up her son and heard the melody from the hall. Her eyes were glassy, hands clasped over her chest. She walked in slowly. "Jamal, where did you learn to play like that?" "I didn't," he replied, his voice low. "I just listened. A lot." The room filled now. Other kids had gathered. Parents, too. Word had spread fast. Even Carter's mother appeared, drawn by something she couldn't quite explain. Mrs. Lansing stepped closer. "You don't have any training?" Jamal shook his head. Her hand trembled slightly as she turned to the Bexleys. "He's a natural. Do you understand what that means? This boy, he's a prodigy. If he's playing like this with no training, he could be something the world's never seen." Mr. Bexley cleared his throat. We support a few youth arts programs. I'm sure we could find a place. We'll sponsor him," Mrs. Bexley cut in gently. "If he's willing. We'll cover everything." Jamal's eyes widened. Are you sure?" She nodded. Yes. You've earned it. The crowd started clapping. It wasn't wild or forced, it was real. Deep. Like everyone in that room understood they'd just witnessed something they might never see again. Something born not from privilege, but from passion. Not from wealth, but from the wild, beautiful heart of a boy who had every reason to give up, but never did. That night, Jamal rode the bus home in silence, the city lights blurring outside the window. His hands rested gently in his lap, still feeling the keys beneath them. Still hearing the song he'd played. When he walked through the door, his mother was waiting. "Well?" she asked. Jamal smiled for the first time all day. "I played, Mama." She tilted her head. "Played what?" "Everything," he whispered. "I played everything." And she pulled him close, held him tight, and in that quiet living room, with cracked tiles and peeling paint, the world felt brand new. Not because of a scholarship. Not because of applause. But because her boy finally believed, he was enough. The next morning, the sun came up just like it always did, but for Jamal, something had shifted. The world hadn't changed, but he had. It was like a tiny door had opened inside him. One he hadn't known was there. And through it, the possibility of something greater had slipped in quietly. Hope didn't shout. It whispered. And Jamal heard it now. The following Monday, he walked through the school doors a little differently. Not with swagger, not with arrogance. Just a touch more, upright. He wasn't invisible anymore. Eyes followed him, whispers trailed behind him like shadows. Some kids looked at him like he was a mystery they suddenly wanted to solve. A few smiled shyly. Some, like Carter and his crew, didn't speak at all. But the mocking? It stopped. Mrs. Lansing wasted no time. She called Jamal into her office during lunch that day and laid out a plan. Lessons, mentorship, recitals. She had contacts at a local conservatory and knew a retired pianist, Mr. Solano, who agreed to take Jamal under his wing. The Bexleys followed through on their offer, funding everything without question. There were conditions, of course, grades had to stay strong, practice was non-negotiable, but Jamal didn't need reminders. For the first time in his life, someone had handed him not a handout, but a lifeline. And he wasn't about to let go. Mr. Solano was nothing like Jamal expected. He lived in a modest home, not far from Jamal's neighborhood, surrounded by houseplants and stacks of sheet music. He moved slowly, his fingers twisted with arthritis, but when he spoke about music, his voice became thunder. Jamal took to him instantly. "You don't play the piano," Mr. Solano said on their first lesson. "You tell it your secrets. You give it your grief. Your joy. You let it speak for the parts of you that don't know how to ask for help." Jamal nodded, even if he didn't fully understand it yet. But he would. The weeks turned to months. Jamal practiced every chance he got, before school, after school, in his sleep. Sometimes, he tapped rhythms on the kitchen table while his mom cooked. Other times, he hummed melodies under his breath while walking down the street. He didn't just learn music, he became it. With Mr. Solano's guidance, he studied composers he'd never heard of, Debussy, Chopin, Rachmaninoff, and slowly began blending their language with his own. He started writing pieces, tiny fragments of thoughts, until one day, a full composition emerged. He called it Grandma's Hands. The first time he played it for his mother, she wept into a dish towel and said, "She would have been so proud of you, baby." It wasn't all smooth. There were days Jamal felt overwhelmed, out of place, or just tired. Tired of always feeling like he had to prove something. Of walking into recital halls where he was the only black kid in the room. Of polite stares and hesitant compliments. But every time he touched the keys, those feelings melted into sound. And that sound kept him going. At the end of the school year, Ridgeview announced a district-wide arts showcase. The best students in music, dance, and visual arts from every school would perform for an audience of teachers, parents, and community members. It wasn't just an honor, it was a spotlight. Mrs. Lansing submitted Jamal's name without even asking. He would be the youngest pianist to perform. The weeks leading up to the showcase were intense. Jamal chose a piece that blended his roots and training, classical structure with gospel soul. It was bold, risky, and completely his. Mr. Solano nodded in quiet approval the first time he heard it. "That's your voice," he said. "Don't let anyone ever tell you it's too loud." The night of the performance arrived, and the auditorium was packed. Kids in crisp uniforms tuned violins backstage. Dancers stretched. Visual artists displayed canvases under bright lights. Jamal sat silently in a folding chair, fingers tapping his thighs, his mind humming with nervous energy. And then, he was called. The stage lights hit him like sunlight through clouds. The piano sat at center stage, polished and waiting. He walked out slowly, his shoes clicking softly against the hardwood floor. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't need to. He sat down. He took a breath. And he played. It started soft, like a memory. The left hand laid down a foundation, sturdy and simple. The right hand danced above it, delicate and sure. Then came the rhythm, syncopated and warm, borrowing from the spirituals his grandmother used to hum. It rose, it fell, it cried out and whispered. It wasn't just notes, it was Jamal's story. A boy from nowhere, playing like the world was listening. And for 5 minutes, the world did. When the last note rang out, the room was still. Not a cough. Not a shuffle. Just silence. Then, applause. First soft, then roaring. Not out of politeness. Out of awe. Backstage, he was mobbed. Teachers he'd never met shook his hand. Parents asked to meet his mother. Students from other schools told him they'd never heard anything like it. Even Carter approached, slower than usual, hands in pockets. "Hey," he said. "That was amazing. I mean it." "Thanks," Jamal replied. And for the first time, it didn't sting. The following week, the local paper ran a story on the showcase. Jamal's photo, head bowed over the piano, fingers frozen mid-flight, was on the front page. The headline read, "A rising star finds his voice." Scholarship started coming in. Letters from conservatories. A representative from Juilliard emailed Mrs. Lansing asking to keep tabs on Jamal's development. Mr. Solano smiled when he heard. "They'll come calling," he said. "The world always comes late to genius. But it comes." One afternoon, as Jamal was leaving school, he saw a small group of younger students crowded around a dusty old keyboard near the music room. One boy, maybe 10, looked frustrated, his fingers fumbling over the keys. Jamal walked over, knelt down, and gently moved the boy's hands. "Like this," he said. "Loosen your fingers. Breathe. You're not trying to fight it, you're trying to feel it." The boy looked up. "How do you know so much?" Jamal smiled. "Because someone took the time to teach me." That night, on the walk home, Jamal thought about how far he'd come. How one accidental note at a birthday party had led to this. But it wasn't really the note that changed everything, it was the choice to stay. To sit. To speak through sound when words wouldn't come. His mother was waiting on the porch. She was always waiting. She held out a letter, another one from a program in New York. "You ready?" she asked. Jamal nodded. "I think I was born ready." She looked at him for a long moment. "You're becoming someone, Jamal. Someone big. But promise me something. Anything. Don't let the world make you forget where you came from. You carry your roots in your music. That's your superpower." He hugged her tight. "I promise. Years from now, People would speak Jamal's name in concert halls, classrooms, and coffee shops. They'd say things like, "He's the one who changed everything," or, "He doesn't just play music, he tells the truth." But Jamal? He'd just smile. Because he knew the truth. It wasn't about fame or applause. It was about that one moment, a boy who wasn't supposed to touch the piano, sitting down anyway. And showing the world that brilliance has no zip code. That talent isn't owned by the wealthy. That sometimes, the most powerful music comes from the quietest places. And maybe, just maybe, that one moment inspired someone else to sit down, too. Because when one boy dares to speak his soul through keys, he doesn't just play a song. He opens a door for everyone who thought they weren't allowed to. And the music? It never stops.